I stand by everything I said on my previous post, The Chosen Book of Mormon? Question mark. Hey everyone, it's Andres. I'm recording this like this because it's also going up across social medias that I'm on. I need to expand on some thoughts. I'll address 3 points. One, this whole thing about the actual line that Dallas Jenkins wrote, I am the law of Moses. Two, Mormons being involved in the production. And three, Dallas Jenkins himself. Okay, so let me start out with the first one because that's what kicked off a lot of this controversy. In fact, finding out that the Wretched, the community tab, is the one that kind of set off the firestorm. There were other YouTube channels that picked up on this and addressed it. Todd Friel, the Wretched, the face of Wretched Radio, wasn't the one that actually wrote it. So if you're interested on his take, it's a very long post. You can go check it. He actually said if he had known about that post, he wouldn't have endorsed it because he actually said something along those lines in his book called Jesus Unmasked, where he argued that you can say that God is the law. Now, so if you believe Jesus is God, which I do, therefore Jesus is the law, or as Dallas Jenkins wrote it, Jesus, I am the law of Moses. So that line is was very disputed. Yours truly also used it in discussing in my previous video. With respects is the line derived from the Book of the Book of Mormon, because it is not in the Holy Scriptures that the Protestants, the evangelicals, use. Okay, so with that, I'm not going to get into the arguments of the line itself, but I will speak to this, that everyone else that has argued it has said it's from the Book of Mormon. They have argued the third book of Nephi, chapter 15, verse 9. Yours truly read verses 8 and 9 because it provides context to making that inferential leap that it's Jesus saying in response to someone else that he is the law of Moses. Now, the law of Moses isn't spelled out in the Book of Mormon, but it's the only other place that we can conclude and look to where Jesus himself is referring to himself as the law. So the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. Okay, but the ones that are taking a bit of an undue flack on all this are the Mormons, because to respond to someone that's chimed in on my YouTube video, I was making the point that it was basically a paraphrase that Dallas Jenkins, whether he was inspired or not, and supposedly he didn't know about this on the Book of Mormon, when he wrote the line, he wrote it because it sounded cool. One can construe that it is a paraphrase of those two verses. The issue isn't so much though that, oh look, it's the Mormon is having an influence. It's just that that's where the blame seemed to lie. And even then, it's like the evangelicals were arguing, actually, we kind of agree with that. And then you had other evangelicals kind of like, well, let's talk about this, because it's supposed to be a theological council that all this goes through, and they had no issue with the line being used in the film, apparently, or the show, for which is why it made the scene after the script. But the way it was argued on social media by the Chosen TV series Instagram was that, oh yeah, it sounded really cool. It's like, that doesn't sound authentic to me then. If the goal is to present an authentic Christ, let's give him some cool slogans to say. And it sounded so cool, they clipped it out and made its own Instagram post, and it's like, oh my gosh, that moment when, and then they put that in that post. So my issue was exactly with that, because the concern was always, because all of this is made up stuff that Jesus is put into these scenarios where some of it is being inspired by the Bible, but they're trying to follow a authentic portrayal of the Gospels, their claim, not ours. That's where it risks heresy. See? So the mere fact that all these theologians and scholars and authorities of the Bible, and even those that are very learned about the Word on YouTube, were arguing about the line itself. Is it from the Book of Mormon? Is it not? This and that? Is it even a fair characterization of Jesus to be able to say that? That's the issue I had. That's the issue I was making in my video. I said it from the conclusion of the video, that my concern was that with this show being a global phenomenon, you have a responsibility where people are saying that they're being impacted by this show that's bringing them back to Christ, or it introduced them to Christ for the first time, or they're understanding Christ even more so than before. You're bearing the weight of responsibility that wasn't there before. It's gone beyond just entertainment, and it becomes very risky of making some kind of apostasy, or it leads to a different belief or a line of thinking. And in our day and age, when there's so many characterizations of Christ that aren't, that is the major concern. Whereas there's even political ideologies that are derived that Jesus never ever addressed, but are always brought up. The left uses it, the right even uses it. So I'm talking about the political ideologies, left and right. They use certain characterizations of Christ to validate their political point, instead of actually looking to what the Word of God says directly, instead of just trying, let me make an inferential leap of what Jesus is saying. So that is the danger that Dallas Jenkins put himself in by highlighting a quote that sounds so cool that's not direct quote from the Bible. That was an issue with the adaptation of the film The Chronicles of Narnia by Disney, when they had Aslan, who was a portrayal of Christ, say it is finished after the battle. If he had said it after, during the scene where he was being sacrificed, Aslan was being sacrificed by the White Witch, then it would have made sense. But instead, the director, who was trying to respect the Christian origins of C.S. Lewis' work, ends up using it at the conclusion of a battle. It seems so off, and there was a backlash just for that little thing. So there are certain things you can't mess with, because it is it's, I guess, doctrinal, or I would say fact. You cannot move that fact. That's what I'm getting at, that you're changing the nature of Christ. And here is that danger, which is why these theologians, scholars, and all that, they're arguing about the plausibility of that line being doctrinal. And that's the problem. It wouldn't be the last time. There'll be more of this. Okay? So there is responsibility that's brought with this, and I lay the blame over at Dallas Jenkins. So now let me address the point number 2, which was with respect to the Mormons being involved. Anybody that knows anything should know that VidAngel is a Mormon studio. And I was fine with that since the very beginning. In fact, I applauded the Latter-day Saints for being able to fund something like this, because they're the ones that had to put this into the forefront and have some kind of avenue and encourage others that they didn't have to, but they opened it up and say, hey, any other Christian denomination, even though we don't agree on a lot of things, even the portrayal of Christ, but are studios available to you? Well, we want to add content, and you guys are welcome to put your content here. And I was all for it. I defended it. I said, this is really awesome that the Mormons are at the forefront of this. Just the Catholic Church at the forefront of the pro-life movement. They're putting in so much money there that the evangelicals haven't been able to do, because a lot of them are in disagreement. Some of them are mega churches, some of them are small churches, and they hate each other and all these different things. All these things tend to happen. And just like the left, the political left, can get all these different ideologies and groups of people that absolutely hate each other. They cannot coexist, but they align on one common denominator, whatever it might be. I guess it's the hatred for the opposition. They are able to work together to push their system, their value system, that a lot of us in the faith disagree with, but they get together and push it anyway. Whereas us, we can't even come together to push back. And here comes the Latter-day Saints with VidAngel Studios, to do something about it. And they've got a lot of flack since the beginning, where Hollywood tried to take them down with lawsuits. So yeah, I'm fine with that. My thing was always, are Mormons going to have influence on the theology of the chosen? That was a major concern from the get-go, and supposedly it wasn't going to be. Okay, so it wasn't that far of a stretch to assume something that almost word for word came from the Book of Mormon, to assume it came from the Book of Mormon. But as Jenkins said, no, I haven't read the Book of Mormon. I just came up with it. Okay, you came up with it. That was something very suspiciously close to something from the third book of Nephi, chapter 15, verse 9. For the full context, though, at least the way I argue it, verses 8 and 9. So, but again, I have no issue. Just like my favorite adaptation of modern adaptation of the Book of Acts being A.D. The Bible Continues. That's also a cornucopia of a lot of different branches of Christianity and Catholicism that came together to do this. The showrunners are Catholic, and there are some things that made the show that like, whoa, doesn't that fly in the face of Catholic thinking? They left it ambiguous enough to say no, a plausible deniability, but still it was enough. I don't want to spoil what that is. I'll let you figure it out on your own. But even then, there's some issues with the show, but it doesn't matter to me. I promote the show. It's like, this is a great show. The Chosen, I waited until after season 2 to finally jump on board with it because I had my concerns about it. And this leads me to number 3, my point number 3. My concerns about The Chosen stemmed from the initial fundraising pitch that Dallas Jenkins did. In his original pitch, his issue was that the biblical adaptations of the Bible were too British. They all had British accents, which in some cases, to me, in modern day speak, sounded like he was complaining they were too white. And I said this in my previous video, that almost sounds a little woke to me. I want to make an authentic Christ. It needs to be diverse and all that. Like those are dog whistles for anybody that has concerns with stuff and the way Hollywood approaches it. But this isn't Hollywood, and I know what he's trying to get at. But you're kind of lumping in AD. The Bible Continues with all of those things, considering how diverse AD was, and AD got flack for being diverse. So I had my concerns about him. I waited it out. Even my pastor had his concerns when the show was going because getting popularity, especially when the lockdowns happened during the whatever demic you want to name what it is. When that happened, because, well, I'm out of content to watch. I guess there's this thing, we can check it out. And that's how it became a global phenomenon. And I think it was a blessing for many people to discover a different form of entertainment. But it's gone beyond the realm of entertainment, where there's now a truly soul-bearing responsibility to the show, that you owe it to the scriptures to uphold what you're doing, Dallas. And you're the one that basically put yourself in this hole. You dug yourself into this hole. From the onset, you said that you had issues with the way the show was being done, so you wanted to portray an authentic Christ. So then you go on and start adding things that he didn't say. And the whole thing, nothing that he's been saying is in the Bible. Oh, of course not. But we're not going to have an issue that Jesus said, oh yeah, go, good morning to you, have a nice day. We're not going to have an issue with that. We're not going to have an issue with Jesus cracking a joke with one of the disciples. That's not an issue. The issue is when you're putting him in a position of authority, speaking to authority that we have written in the Gospels, and you're having him say, oh, cool line, I am the law of Moses. That's different. Because when he was speaking to authority, he was speaking from authority. And you added something he is not recorded to have said in the Gospels. Entirely different. Entirely different. And to add more to the concern was when you were on that stream with one of the Mormons involved, and you said, we believe in the same Christ, when we do not. We do not ascribe to another testimony of Jesus Christ, another testament of Jesus Christ. They do, we don't. So, yes, there was valid concern, and there still is, because we haven't seen the whole thing play out. And then we have this moment. So yes, I stand with everything I said. My only, regret is that the post that I made was the second take, not my initial take. Almost all these points I just said to you were in the initial take, but it was also more than twice as long as my original post. And in a way, I'm glad I didn't post it, because here I am addressing it, and it would have come across as redundant, but I get to address other things that were brought up and look at everything that's happened since I made the post, where all these evangelicals have argued all these things. So there is weight to a lot that was being said. And while some of them are clarifying or mea culpa, like Todd Friel was, and others saying that no, we actually do agree with the line and not blaming the Mormons and whatever. Like for the Mormon that posted on my previous YouTube video, I made the case to say I wasn't taking it out on the Mormons. And if I came across like that, I do apologize for that. My mindset was I already addressed the point, but the point wasn't in that published video. It was in the previous recording that I didn't publish, but I'm saying it now for clarification. My issue is with Dallas Jenkins, who bears the responsibility. He gets all the wins, but also gets all the losses. And right here, the entire responsibility rests on him. It isn't an inferential leap for him to have come up with a phrase that sounds suspiciously close to what came from the Book of Mormon to have come from the Book of Mormon because of who he's been surrounding himself with and who he's involved with. And again, I have no issue, especially if VidAngel can do like categories and say, look, this is explicitly Mormon, this is explicitly Catholic, this is explicitly Protestant or whatever. You know how cool that would be? Kind of like the categories of what's for kids and what's like for teenagers, and then for a more mature audience and things like that. I think that's a really cool thing. I think VidAngel's a blessing. I really, really do. And hats off to the Latter-day Saints for it, and also for your efforts in what you did for the state of California, even though in the end it fractured. But therein goes what happened with Proposition 8. So no, I do not hold any animosity towards the Mormons in any way. And if I said things that came across like that, that wasn't my intention. Especially my mindset being that I just got off a recording session where I made those points that my issue wasn't with the church of Latter-day Saints. My issue was with Dallas Jenkins, who was falling back on what he promised he would do. So we'll see how everything else plays out from here. I hope this is a little more clear with what I had said before. And I added and addressed certain things that came up. So for those of you watching on YouTube, my intent is to timestamp it down below, and Odyssey also, the timestamp should work, so you can jump between points if you so choose to. Anyway, if you have watched this far, thank you so very much for watching this far. I appreciate your time, and you're welcome to chime in the comments on this whole fiasco, or even anything that I've said, or maybe that I'm not making myself still clear enough. But I do appreciate your time, whether you agree with me or didn't. I haven't discouraged anybody from watching The Chosen. I never said that. Even in my previous video and in my Instagram live stream that I did, I announced that I will watch The Chosen. I will cringe at the scene, most likely, but I'm still going to watch it because I believe in supporting Christian content, and I hope that they stick the landing here after this controversy, because there's still time to address it. That's where I'll leave it. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.